Hey everybody, I'm here with my 2018 Audi RS3, and it appears that it has experienced a bit of a leak in one of the gaskets. It's the main seal by the accessory pulley. Essentially what happens in these cars is that the PCV valve will start working so well, and then the vacuum doesn't work as well as it's supposed to, and then the boost goes into the crankcase, and then things start happening. So it'll start creating extra pressure, and you'll see leaks start to occur in different places, like the oil filter, that housing, because that's plastic, so you'll start to see some seepage there. You'll potentially see some around the drain plug. For some of the earlier vehicles, there isn't a lot of good adhesive that was used on mating the can't even think today, the oil pan to the block. So I actually dealt with that a while ago because I thought that was the original problem. So if there's any weakness there, it'll start to come out through there, and then also the seal by the accessory pulley. So I started doing this, and I realized that it might be helpful for other people to understand how to do this. Actually kind of already in the process of doing it. There's not a lot of good information out there on this particular 2.5 liter 5-cylinder engine from Audi. So I figured I'd kind of walk you through where I've gotten to so far. I'm about to take the main seal off, but just so you know, switch over here, and yeah, I'm gonna kind of show you the steps where I'm at. So bear with me. Okay, so you want to first jack up your car. You can't put it on ramps because you need to actually take off the front wheel to get to into this, because there's absolutely no way, unless you feel like pulling your engine out, you're going to be able to do it from the top. So jack it up, put on some stands, make sure you loosen the lug nuts on the wheel before you do that, otherwise it's going to be really hard to loosen up that wheel. So take that wheel off once you've jacked it up, and then you're going to proceed to take off the entire fender liner here. Okay. There's a bunch of Torx screws that are holding that bad boy in, and then a couple of little plastic clips at the bottom here. They look like this. If you haven't used these before, they're kind of confusing. They'll be in the vehicle like this, and then you don't want to pry it out because it'll actually enlarge that hole and you could break this. So what you actually want to do is put a small screwdriver or a pin to push that little piece through, and then it'll release. Don't worry if you push it too far. That piece does come out, it's not attached. See this little guy? If it does fall through towards the back of the car, it just comes out through here and you can retrieve it. So don't worry about that. So pull out that fender liner, and then you're gonna come in here and you're gonna see this, but with a few more parts. So this is part of the intercooler, the connection from the intercooler to the turbo. So you have a pipe clamp up top and the bottom, and then you've got a screw here in the back and in the bottom. So you want to remove those two screws and loosen the pipe or the hose clamps, and then you can kind of maneuver that bad boy out. The next thing you want to do is remove the accessory belt. It's a good idea to mark it, just so you know which way it was positioned in there, in case it falls completely out. And then after you've marked it, you are going to, where is it? You're going to take I think that's a 16 millimeter socket, put it on your breaker bar. Pay no attention to that bit there, that's not the one you want to use, but basically you put it up there, crank to the right there, and it will loosen up the belt, and then you can take it off of the pulley right there. Okay, now getting on to this bad boy. So there is a specific way you want to do this. When you imagine this is still on the vehicle, you want to find this little guy right here. That is the mark for top dead center. So you want to rotate that around all the way until it's basically right here. You'll see a little witness mark right up there. It's kind of hard to see right there. Basically line it up there. If you're going to get into this job, understand that there's a couple tools that you're going to want to use. I'll do a separate clip for this, but this is the locking pin. You can order these on Amazon and some other places online. It's not too expensive. I think it's like $15. You want to get this guy, but before you can put this in, there is a 16 millimeter bolt that you want to pull out. Remember that there's oil in here, so before you actually get to the point where you pull this out, make sure that you drain all of the oil from the oil pan. And that's just like any other oil change, right? You just pull out the drain plug there and go to town. All right, so after that's drained, pull that bolt out, and then you get this bad boy in right there. So what'll happen is, to get this into the right position, there is a special wrench that goes over this. Basically has a recess for each one of these 5 bolts. You put it on, and it's got a hex head that allows you to turn it. I ordered it, but they sent me the wrong part. They actually sent me a handle to lift the engine out of the car. So I gave it a shot with just the spline bit that goes in here and a breaker bar, and I just gently turned it in a clockwise rotation, and it allowed me to move the pulley very, very easily. And I did that even with the accessory belt still on. So I got it to where it was lined up, and then once that was lined up, I was able to put this into the location. You want to be careful when you put this in. You don't want it to be cocked off a little bit, because if you put it in, you could like mar the inside in there. So just kind of start moving this in, and if you encounter some resistance, start wiggling this back and forth, and that'll allow you to get this all the way in. So just kind of work it back and forth until this can get seated in all the way in. Once you don't see any of pretty much all of the threads have been screwed into the block, then you know it's there, and you won't be able to wiggle this anymore. So the reason you have this in here is so that when you actually are going to pull these out, it's not spinning on you. It's very helpful. So getting into this bad boy. So this is what you're going to see there. You've got these 5 spline screws here. Let's see, what is it? It is a M10 spline. So they're very shallow, and I had a bit of a difficulty using the breaker bar or a regular ratchet. So I had to get my old friend the impact wrench, and I very gently was able to get those to loosen up. Because they're so shallow, I was worried that I would potentially strip them out. But with the air impact gun, it was able to loosen those up. So if you have an impact drill, that might do it too. They shouldn't be as tight as they were, but they were a bit difficult to get out. So just be prepared for that. If you start to have trouble with just the standard hand tools, you might need to resort to something that will actually provide some of that hammering force onto those. But then they came out really, really cleanly. All right, so then I got that out, and now I'm at the part where I'm going to take off this plate. So again, just want to reiterate, you want to make sure that you drain out all of the oil from the pan before you get to this part, otherwise it's just going to dump out. As you can see, there is definitely some leaking going on around here. It doesn't seem to be happening around the flange here, but definitely around the mating surface at this lower section here. And then what's happening is it's dripping down here, and then as the car drives down the road and the air is pushing this way, it's then following the back of the pan. So then it makes it look like the oil pan could be leaking, but in reality it's this. And it's actually kind of hard to see, even from underneath the car. The telltale sign is this guy. Like, this should be really clean, but it's covered in oil. It's actually been happening for a few years on my vehicle, but it's slowly gotten worse. And when I went to change my wheels for the summertime, from my winter tires, there's actually oil on the inside of the hub of the wheel. So I knew it was time to actually look into this. Anyway, so now I'm going to go through and take these out. It's worth noting that these were so loose that I was basically able to just take the bit and twist it with my fingers, and they started coming free. So this has definitely been an issue. I don't know if it's because of the PCV valve putting that pressure in and it just slowly loosened this up, or if it's been like that way from the factory. I know that when I went to replace the seal on the oil pan down there, those bolts are very, very loose as well. So anyway, now I'm going to loosen that up, or we're going to loosen up all those bolts, and then I'm going to take that bad boy off, and then we're going to put on a new plate. All right, so I just pulled off this flange, and this is the bottom here. The bottom was completely not sealed to the block up there. The rest was actually pretty good. Like from here all the way up here, that was very well adhered to the block. It's worth noting that in the factory manual, it says that you can basically refurbish this, just clean this up and put it back on. However, if it is still attached pretty well anywhere around it, you're going to bend the heck out of it. This is super thin aluminum. I mean, I suppose you could try to get it flat again, but if you're going to do this, I would not risk it. The cost of the part is very inexpensive compared to having to deal with all this again. And even if you take this in, I would highly implore whoever does it at the shop to get a brand new unit, because it's possible you're going to bend this to the point where it doesn't make sense to use it again. All right? So anyway, this is what we're looking at. Now you can see that there's still some of the sealant around here, all around. So to make sure that our new piece isn't going to leak, we need to clean this off. Now they say to use like a rotary tool to kind of get all that stuff off. So I'm going to try that. I can also try a razor blade to kind of slice some of that off, or like shape some of that off. So I'm gonna work on that now, and then we'll see where we're at in a minute. So as you can see, I've started to clean it up already. I was going to use a rotary tool, but actually found out that this very worn brass brush works very, very well. As you can see, it's just melting right off very easily. I would assume that if you had a much better brush, it would go much faster, but I mean, I put in about 3 minutes into this and it's already almost completely clear. What's interesting is down here, this isn't coming off, but it's essentially metal right here. I'm going to work on it a little bit more, but I don't expect this to get much cleaner. So anyway, one other thing you might want to do, if you're like me, I don't like to have a bunch of crap in the engine. So I plugged up this area right here just to make sure we don't get any more of that sealing material inside the engine. It shouldn't really harm it. It is, it's this rubbery stuff here. And it's supposed to not damage it, but it's also not supposed to be in there. So anyway, I'm going to finish cleaning this up and then we'll get to the next step. All right, as you can see, it is all nice and clean. I took out my paper towel because we don't want to leave a paper towel in there. Probably wouldn't run very well with that paper towel running around inside the engine. So again, like I said, this bottom part, it looks like there's material there, but it's really not. It looks like it's more stained. I scrubbed it, or I went after it quite a bit with the brush. Nothing was coming off. Key is nothing's coming off. That means that when I put the new adhesive there, it's going to seal very, very well. All right. So just make sure you wipe off all the dust, get it off of the pulley mating surface there. So you don't want to get any of that schmutz in your engine. All right. Now we're going to move on to preparing the new seal. Okay, here is my new seal. I'm sorry. This is not the new seal. The seal is in there, but this is my new replacement plate. So I got this from a company called JDY Performance. This is actually a billet unit. If you compare the two, it's quite a bit thicker. I'm not very good at taking this photo. All right, as you can see, it is quite a bit thicker in comparison to this guy, which is just a piece of stamped sheet metal. All right, so this is going to be my new replacement plate. It is actually just about the same price as the standard OEM one, but it's very stiff. So because it is thicker, if there is ever any potential extra pressure in the engine, this is going to do a lot better job of keeping it straight and not deforming. Here's another tool that you're going to want to use. This is a little guide that goes in through the back of the plate, through the flange and the seal there, to open that up without damaging it. If you try to put it on without using this, there is the potential that you could damage this surface, and then you would start to have a bad seal here and link around the shaft there, because that actually spins as the vehicle, as the engine runs. So you want to be very careful not to damage this. I think the cost on this was like maybe $30 or something like that. It's well worth it in my opinion, just to make sure that you don't have to do this job again because you've accidentally messed up the seal. All right, so the next part is going to be putting the adhesive on the back of this and getting it ready to put back on the vehicle. Okay, so now I have put on the adhesive, or the liquid gasket. It's Loctite 5970. I think there's some equivalent in Permatex, but I use the Loctite 5970. So this is the bead profile. It's about 3 millimeters, what they say. The large outline, there's actually a channel in the flange here where you can easily follow that to put the bead in. And then at the bottom one, on these bottom 3 bolts here, this one, and this one, along the outer edge, you just follow the outer edge. There's no channel there, but that's how you would add that other one. Now we're going to put it on the vehicle. Also, as you can see, I put the guide sleeve through. You want to put it in through the back, so the side that's facing the camera here, you want to slide it through with the tapered end going through first, and then just so it's barely in the back still, just like that. All right, now we're going to put it on the car. Okay, so I just slid that on. It's important to note that this side that goes over this here isn't large enough to go around it. It basically just gets it so it meets up. So you're gonna feel like you should try to be able to put it on, but you can't. So essentially you just want to get it right here and then push the plate off of this locating cone and back onto the block on the side there. Now the nice thing about this piece is that it actually comes with some locating pins on the other side here, and then there's a locating pinhole on the block, so it ends up seating in there and then you know exactly that it's right in the right place, and you don't have to worry about it being clocked the wrong way. All right. So now that that's on, then you're going to put all the bolts in. It comes, this particular part from JDY comes with 9 replacement bolts, so you don't reuse the ones that came on the vehicle. So now we're going to put those on. And it's worth noting for this particular plate from JDY, there is no requirement to tighten these down in the star pattern. I'm going to do it anyway because why not? It's just it's something worth noting that that's what the instructions say. Okay, so now you can see I've got all the bolts in. Pretty easy peasy. Now I just start putting everything else back together. I'm going to put the crankshaft pulley back on, and then the belt, and then the intercooler pipe, and then tighten everything down, and then I'm going to put the wheel back on, and then need to make sure you put the oil back in. So I'm going to put the drain plug back on, remove the filter, replace the filter, fill her back up with oil, and then we'll be good to go. And that's it.